this is our second conversation of the day. And the first one looked at the idea of measuring and getting ourselves net zero. This conversation is about something that we can actually do, something that can reverse the damage of our carbon heavy infrastructure over the last 150, 200 years. And this conversation is with Howard Gunstock, and he had an epiphany back in probably 2019 or so when he realized there was an opportunity, there was something that could be done about the amount of CO2 in the air and in the sea. And that his particular choice of process was seaweed. And Howard is the CEO of Carbon Kapture, a company that uses seaweed to reverse climate change by first absorbing that carbon from the atmosphere into the seaweed, actually taking it straight out of the water, and then using that seaweed to sequester that carbon so it's locked away safely. Anyway, his company and business is a unique process. It's not, the processes are not unique actually. It's not the what they do is unique, it is the way they are doing it. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with myself and Howard Gunstock. I am the host of Life, Fashion and Business. I'm a life coach and I do lots of things around sustainability. And I'm delighted today to be with Howard Gunstock, who is the CEO from Carbon Kapture.
Hi, I'm Howard Gunstock. I'm the CEO of Carbon Kapture, as Paul said. We're a circular ecology business model that is primarily driven upon the idea of growing seaweed and doing good things with seaweed. But really, it's about thinking in ways and having a business that operates in a way that is balanced and uses the planets and the resources of nature to bring balance, to slowly heal some of the damage caused by man-made climate change.
Fantastic. So this is a unique business model. This is why we've got you here today to have this conversation, because there are lots of organizations and seaweed is becoming the new edge, I guess. There are lots of people developing seaweed projects, but your business model is totally unique in terms of this, because it's like you are not the classic producing a commercial product. You're doing this in a completely different system. Can you explain more about what this is about and well, I guess we should say what his seaweed does, but let's talk about your business model first of all.
Sure. Okay, so let's be clear here. There's no new innovation massively in what we're doing. What there is different thinking in the way that it's being done. So we're a third-party reseller or third-party solution provider in the seaweed and aquaculture business in its as part of our business. Effectively, people and businesses sponsor ecology services through us.
So it's like buying a gardener.
You're like buying a gardener, sponsoring a panda, but we do this thing to show that there is profit and that you can change some of the story of money to being an ecologically profitable way of working. So growing seaweed, again, we didn't invent that. That's definitely been going on for tens of thousands of years. But seaweed being used has traditionally been used for human consumption and for animal consumption, which in part is one of the reasons why we thought we started Carbon Kapture. But really, it's more about I guess refining the processes of seaweed of growing and farming seaweed, so it's more ecologically sound and so it's more effective at capturing CO2 and nitrates and pollutants in our oceans and moving it from one location in the ocean to another on land, so it benefits ecology and ecosystems rather than to the detriment of ecology and the heating of our oceans. Yeah.
I was reading some stuff up on this, and I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but seaweed is a wonderful, amazing product. What it can do, because it literally sucks out the nutrients out of the sea. It doesn't need any inputs at all.
It's a really interesting plant. It's not a plant. There's a special term for it, but in the context of what we're talking about, it's a plant. And because of where it grows in weightlessness. The sea is effectively weightlessness, so it can grow something in the region, depending on the types of species and where you are, up to 30 times faster than a tree. So that's really the first real advantage. The second thing is it's incredibly durable, and its cycle of growth and from sapling to maturity is 7 or 8 months. So therefore, you've got a fully mature plant in that time. The way that it grows, it doesn't need any special fostering of any special feed. It lives off the carbon and lives off the phytoplankton and sunlight within the sea. So that's a really it's a relatively low maintenance crop in that sense. And then really then to sort of round it off, what really makes it wonderful, and the reason why it should be fostered as a thing that everyone should be doing, is that, I'm not sure if you're aware, Paul, 2 out of every 3 breaths that you take comes from photosynthesis from our oceans. And we know that because our planet is a blue planet that's 70% water and 30% land.
Right.
So the ratios of 2/3, fit about right in that thinking. So what you've then got is photosynthesis that happens in water, in the oceans, that produces more oxygen, which allows everything to live in a carbon-based life form world, right?
Yep. So clearly, I mean, this is taking out the excess nutrient. Does it grow better in higher nutrient dense areas?
Yeah, it can do. It can do.
So if
Obviously,
you've got farm runoff and that sort of stuff, it's actually very good to combat.
Yeah. So what you're actually doing is removing all the pollutants and the nitrates and the carbon dioxide in excess that's in our oceans, which in themselves are acidifying and heating the ocean. So you're removing those, and it's living inside the plant.
Right.
And once the plant is fully grown, that's when the ecology services really start to kick in. So growing it is one thing, but then what you do with it is another. And we choose let's be clear, right? You can grow, seaweeds and kelps just to stimulate ecologies and ecosystems in the oceans. But what we can also do is you can harvest it, and then when you harvest it, if you dry it using natural processes, sunlight, for example, or solar energy, or any other sort of ways that you could want to reduce the drying energy costs of drying seaweed, and then you can then add other biomass to it. And when I say biomass, I mean woods and waste material. And then you dry that out, and you turn that into sort of like a fairly dry, something like 15-20% water mass. You then biochar that. Now, biochar is a type of charcoal, which is a type of coal, and one of the wonderful things about it is that it's a solid form of carbon. And as a solid form of carbon, it needs it then can do a number of things. You can then activate it. You can activate it using animal waste products. Let's use that.
Okay.
And those animal waste products then allow the biochar to absorb nutrients in soil, or it can be used as part of a way to reduce methane that comes out of cattle, or it can be used as a building aggregate to actually hold and sequester CO2, like if you were putting coal back into soil, or if you're putting the carbon back into the soil. But one of the reasons why we find we are leaning towards the latter of that is because when you have activated biochar in soil, what that does is it increases the water irrigation properties of soil. What it also does is the biochar absorbs the nutrients and the artificial fertilizers and pesticides that have been used in farming practices to get larger crop yields. And by removing some of those artificial fertilizers and pesticides, what you're then doing is you're stimulating microbial life beneath soil. So not only are you putting physical sequestered carbon into the soil, but by stimulating life beneath the soil, you're increasing the carbon content of microbial life beneath soil.
Mm.
So it's a double win there.
And that
It's a double.
biochar process was very similar to that famous soil coming out of was it Mexico? No, Mexico, out of the Amazon, but Paretta, something called Paretta, black earth or something, which I think is the same thing. It's charcoal and various things, various additions to it. So this is not new technology. This is ancient
No,
technology being rediscovered.
yeah, no. So we haven't rediscovered it. I think pyrolysis and the idea of some of these things have been around for hundreds of years.
Mm.
The way we've interconnected it as an end-to-end supply chain process, well, that's circular thinking. That's really the way that businesses need to be operating. What we've done is we've cannibalized some of the processes within a supply chain to
Yep.
make it much more effective at being a carbon stores, carbon sequestration project, and end-to-end solution. And by putting our planet first, what we've then given businesses and individuals the opportunity to do is be part of a solution rather than knowing that climate change is happening around them and not having any sort of way to, to participate other than planting trees and doing the standard stuff. We've got to be, as a society, as a species, we've got to be more innovative. We've got to be able to use our waste products in a much more effective way. Unfortunately, one of the challenges we have is that we have become so conditioned to be a throwaway society that actually to create these financial mechanisms, to some people it's rocket science, to others it's just more interconnected thinking. And more interconnected thinking is what's needed to be able to help our planet.
What I was fascinated with in reading up some of your stuff is this the whole process in terms of it provides support for local communities because it provides work at
Yeah,
different ends of the season.
yeah,
And there's a whole process around bringing, effectively having these local communities being effectively part of a climate change solution.
yeah. And it's really interesting. So there is a lot of bad press, unfortunately, especially in around the southwest of England, about seaweed farms cropping up, and these protests against them are done, ironically, from second homeowners and people that don't really know very much about what it's actually doing, because where seaweed grows, marine life flourishes.
Mm.
It kickstarts ecology and ecosystems. So what we're doing effectively in those employment ravaged communities that were so dependent upon the sea is you're giving them a new way of having, I guess, social impact
Mm.
in those locations by providing jobs, by providing reskilling, by supporting those communities who are right on the edge of climate change.
Of
That
course.
that 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 really feels like that's the way that we can do that, because once you've then stimulated a farming community and a fishing community with jobs that actually provide meaning and impact, what you've actually then done is you've brought back an opportunity to bring back young people into those
Mm.
far-flung communities, giving them a reason to be there other than pretty round here.
Yes, yes, of course, and of course, if you can refresh the environment as well, to biodiversity, it's saving the fishing, local fishing for future generations. So everything's a win-win-win in this, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, there is. We have to become, I think some of the challenges that we have is we've become political cannon fodder because of a cancel culture that has grown and from an anti woke culture, which I still don't totally understand, if I'm really honest, what people's uh, 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 misgivings are towards respecting other people. But that aside, what we've got to get better at doing is joining dots that were easily joinable 100, 150 years ago, but looking at it from an even bigger perspective rather than a macro perspective,
Mm.
the micro perspective, a proper macro perspective, where you can start to understand that by doing this, not only does it affect something over here, but if you bring it through, you can actually make impact over here. I feel like I'm doing Wing Chun. But yeah, those knock-on effects can have massive, repercussions into society that will have a knock-on effect for centuries.
Mm. And of course, this is your first year in this process, and I guess you're going to learn all the way. But your model is easily transferable, from what I can tell.
Yes, definitely easy transferable, definitely adaptable. Definitely the idea is as my eyes are rolling in the back of my head as I say this, and my sales director will be loving this. It's a cookie cutter model. Mm. Oh, hurts me when I have to say that. It's a cookie cutter model, with the idea that if you work in hand, and participate with processes in the right geographies, and you have the right support, actually you can almost get a community interest project happening in parallel and in tandem with carbon capture as well. So the idea that at the moment, it would the farms that we have work best if you're already a fisherman, if you're already a finfish farmer or an aquaculture farmer,
Mm.
mussel farmer, shellfish farmer, scallop farmer, etc. Because you've already got a business that has a revenue. This sits on top of your business and sits on top of your farms. And also what it does is it cleans your waters. It stimulates, if you've got a finfish farm, one of the really big issues that you have is that unfortunately those fish have an output, an excrement, and this actually takes that and uses it for the betterment of the ocean.
Yes, yes. And of course, if you've got shellfish and that sort of stuff, you're relying on, you want a stable pH of the water around you, and not that they're going to change the pH much, but it's going to stabilize the pH in the local area, I'd imagine.
Of course. And there are challenges with the shellfish farmers in the sense of they only have a certain amount of mouths to feed. If you've got one line or if you've got 1,000 lines, you've only got a certain finite amount of nutrients. However, when you have seaweed, actually you're adding additionality to that with some of the waste that happens from some of the small breakages of the
Mm.
that comes off, that actually is nutrient rich in a form that those shellfish and crustaceans can actually live off. And other signs of it as well, there's other parts of that seaweed that will become additional sort of sequestered carbon at the bottom of the ocean. Not
Mm.
much, but it all helps.
So this is what's unique about your project is anybody can get involved, can't they? Anybody can buy a piece of rope.
Yes, everybody can buy a bit of rope. You buy a bit of rope from about £20 onwards.
Yeah.
And you can do it monthly. You can do it. You can do it as a business and sponsor that. But what we do, apart from provide the ecology services, is give you updates, give you insights on what's happening with your ropes, etc., and move that forward. And as you said, we're in our first year iteration of actually doing this. We've been researching this for 3 or 4 years now, and now we're at a stage where it's actually happening. I've got that GIF in my head from the American Office. It's happening, it's happening. But yeah, it is actually happening. What's really nice is we've got a lot of academics supporting us in validating our models and theories, etc., and that's working really well. And then 2024 is certainly about growth and how we can actually move forward as a business. So that's working really well.
Well, Howard Gunstock, thank you so much for being part of this process today, being part of the Earth Day for Habitat Student Association. So thank you so much. And that was myself and Howard Gunstock talking about the merits of carbon capture. If you'd like more information, do check out the website, carbonkapture.com, and reach out to Howard because he's a lovely guy to talk to. Anyway, thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this event today. I hope it goes well for you all. And maybe see you next year.